Here we are, and it is live talk with Becky Chernek, and we are talking F&I Trends, and I have Paul Machin here tonight, and I'm so happy to have Paul on tonight. Thank you, Paul, for being here. For those that are new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for our auto dealers throughout the USA, as well as in Canada. And I got to tell you, from the time I train, from the time that that customer touches down on that dealership website to working with BDC, from BDC to sales, because you know those two just go hand in hand. And then from there, I work with the desk, making sure that we're putting those deals together right. We have the right deal structure, working with that lender. And from there, we're finalizing this transaction in the F&I office with a designated F&I person or even a single point sales associate. And that is the individual who takes that transaction from the very beginning, from sale to finalizing the transaction with the menu presentation, and or a hybrid individual manager from sales to finalizing this transaction with that menu presentation. So again, I am so excited to be here, and I'm glad you are too. Please make sure to hit the like button. This is being broadcasted on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as YouTube. So we've got, like I said, a great guest featured speaker, Paul. And Paul has a tremendous background in the automotive industry. Paul Machin, he's the U.S. International Director of Strategic Accounts. Boy, let me tell you, talk about title here. Black Book. And he has got some great stuff to share. Are we dealing here with this a crisis in affordability? Are customers having a hard time buying a new car and making those big car payments? So if you will, Paul, before we get started, just kind of share your background a bit, and then let's get right into it.
Well, thank you, Becky. I'm humbled to be a part of the show. I'm super excited to be able to share some insights. I've been in the industry now a little more than 33 years. So I'm kind of dating myself here. I'd like to tell people I was born in the business. That's why I look so young. And they kind of giggle like, yeah, whatever. So, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to be first 15 years on the retail side in stores, running stores, being a GM of stores. So I understand what it takes to be a dealer today. And then I've spent the last 17 years now, 18 on this side of it, on the software as a service and now data as a service. And what I bring is that, how the data should be applied and the technology that a dealer wants to use and the process they need to implement and the people they need to hire to make it work in the store. So people, process, and technology is really how to make it all work together. And the data I want to share with you tonight, and as we've been discussing, it may sound a little morbid, but by the time I'm done, I have 7 recession-proof strategies that I'd like to share with the group that I think that if the progressive and smart dealers adapt to this, they'll be just fine.
Well, I think part of the whole thing is understanding what's really taking place in the marketplace. I mean, what's really happening. One of the reasons why I wanted you on this show is because you back up what you say.
Yes.
Your data backs up what your viewpoints are. And that's what I like about F&I. It's all black and white. Either you're doing good or you're not. It is what it is. And so I know that you can really share good knowledge, with our car dealers so that they have a better way of really being able to size up what is absolutely necessary to implement these best practices, as you said, in their dealership. And so I think I brought on the best that there is to be able to share this. And, talking about this affordability crisis, because, I bang my head up against the wall because I'm kind of thinking that there is a crisis, an affordability crisis going on. You and I talked about this earlier on. I know years ago, I'm telling you right now, someone told me my car payment would have been $1,000 a month. I'm like, not going to happen. And I know friends that had car payments of $1,000. I'm like, is that going to happen? I can't do the $1,000 car payment. And now is it getting average for a new car payment at $1,000? Where are we here?
We are seeing new car payments closer to 1,000, and used vehicle payments between 500 and 700 right now. It's shocking.
I got good buddy Steven here. Data without
Steven.
relevant process is just data, and process without data is usually misguided. Gosh, he is so good when it comes to this stuff.
He's
Put
100%
the
right.
two together and good things just occur. Amen, Steven. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you are. And you know he appreciates, you know what he calls you, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Black Book. Wasn't sure whether or not I should call you Mr. Black Book.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind.
But you're awesome. We love you. It's great. So carry on.
Perfect. Can you guys see my screen?
So, okay, I will do that right now. Here we go. We've got you. Go ahead.
I get excited, very passionate about what I talk about, and I'll get on a roll. If you have a question or a comment that you want to explore a little bit more, please stop me and let's dive into it. And it's just because I get passionate. I'm very excited about it. First, let me state that I have receipts. As you said, I've got back everything with data, but I also have receipts on the data that I discussed from over 2.5 years ago. It said, if all of these things line up, this is what's going to happen. And about every 6 months, I go back and take a look. Well, I remember talking about that 6 months ago, and we're here. It's happening. So anything I share, go back and you can go back through my receipts on LinkedIn, on my vlogs, and you can find that, you know what, that dude was right. He did say this 6 months ago, and look at what's happening today.
Well, I love your vlogs, and I've now been watching every bit I can get, because anytime I can go into a dealership and provide my dealer with accurate content to back up the reason why we do what we do, that's why, I mean, we're successful. So I'm positive that more dealers are going to be checking this particular podcast out because or event, because they want to know what's happening and how to protect their best interests, right?
That's
and
right.
You know, sell more cars when you can. So have at it.
Perfect. So let's start with the average income in the U.S. This is put out by the U.S. Census.gov, was put out September 13th. They said the real median income for 2021, $70,784. So you see, I'm highlighting that. Now, mind you, that was in the middle of the pandemic. 2020 was $71,186. The St. Louis Fed is now stating that the year-to-date median income is trending to be about $72,600 for the year. So for the simple math, let's just say $72,000 even, or $6,000 a month is the average U.S. national income, right? So let's start with the mortgage payment so we can understand the domino effect that causes the affordability crisis we have. So what is DTI? Similar to payment to income in the finance business. Is for cars, it's the same thing for a mortgage. Bankrate.com says the best DTI that a consumer should have is about 28% to their income. Now, hold on a second. If I got a $6,000 a month average income and the average mortgage payment today is $2,200, $2,250, I'm at $6,000. I'm at 37.5% debt to income before adding all my other debt that I owe. Now, there's a back end number that the mortgage companies like to talk about, and that's called the back end debt to income. That includes your mortgage payment, your car payment, your student loan payment, home equity, personal loans, any other debt that you may have that you're responsible for. The mortgage with all that other debt, they want that ideally to be at 36%. But right now, the average mortgage payment with the average U.S. income is already at 37.5%. So that's the beginning. That's the domino effect, the first domino that's falling right now. And we're hearing and seeing that news that's happening today. Now that we understand that debt to income, let's migrate over and talk a little bit about the affordability crisis we're experiencing on the pre-owned market. Now, I want to talk about the pre-owned market because what we've always been told, consumers should buy a pre-owned like new car because they can save, 50 to 60%, because typically a 3-year-old car is about 50% less than what it would be for a brand new car. That's what we were told. That's
right. For years.
Raised, right? We were told that. I was raised that way in this business.
Yeah,
well, last year, 3-year-old cars were selling for sticker. That was last year. in 2020, 3-year cars were selling just under sticker, like $500 to $1,000 under sticker. We came into 2022 on the wholesale side of the business at 151% increase in average wholesale price from January 2021. So it means a $10,000 vehicle in January 2021 was that exact same car, year, make, model, mileage was worth 15 grand. How's that possible? But consumers did it. To our shock, they did it. So this is put out by the Experian State of the Automotive Finance Q2. So this is taking into consideration Q1 and Q2. And if you notice, the Q2 average amount financed 2020 was $21,361. Now, jump forward to Q2 2022, $28,531. So in 2 years, it jumped $7,000 in price. So the pricing pressure for pre-owned vehicles also led to pricing pressure for new vehicles. I think I'll give another great example on the new car side of the business. The manufacturers matched what the government did for $7,500 tax incentives for buying an electric vehicle. That was just something they did just 2 months ago. And guess what the OEMs did? Electric vehicles, they increased their MSRP price by $7,500.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So there was still no benefit to the consumer. That's our tax dollars trying to help consumers, and we didn't get that benefit, right? So pricing pressure, or what I like to call now demand destruction. We are creating our own demand destruction. So the average payment in Q2 2020 was $397. We finished at $515 Q2 2022, $118 jump. Now, one would reason, well, maybe it jumped so much because interest rates are higher and the terms were shorter, or the terms were shorter. Well, take a look. Average rate was 8.8 in 2020. 2022 was 8.62. The rate went down, didn't go up. Maybe the term got shorter. 2020 was 65 and a half months. 2022, we finished at 68 months. That went up too. That went up, which should drive the payment down, but the payment's up $118.
So the term went up, the interest rate was down.
Right.
And yet we still have payments going up.
Right. So that demand destruction that as dealers, I love my dealers. They've made most money they've ever made. And I hope a lot of them have saved it, because what we're coming into is that tsunami, the perfect storm I keep describing. Now that red flag, those two red flags on the mortgage side of the business, there's a lot of heat and attention being paid to that now. And now in the car business, in the auto loan space. Our dear friend that we love and we fear, it's called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the chief, the head of the CFPB is on record. He is not a friend to the automotive industry. And with all the heavy-handed regulations that's coming out, if our audience takes one thing away, pay attention to your compliance process and procedures, because that one error could cost you tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands. It happened under Obama. It will happen here under this administration.
I think a lot of times, sometimes, Paul, we get drowned out in this compliance. And yes, I know how many times dealers are like, oh, Becky, don't be talking about the compliance piece. We've been faring pretty darn well over the past 20 years. We've kind of, do our thing, and, we just don't, they just don't see this compliance as much as we might see it, and want to help dealers to understand that you've got to be careful and you have to protect yourself.
Well, compliance was a really big conversation for us when I was with DealerTrack from 2008, especially from the time of 2008 through about 2014. It was really heavy conversations about compliance and how to improve upon it and get better. But since the last 7 years, it's gotten kind of quiet.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has.
A lot less attention has been paid to it. And I think these heavy-handed regulations are going to come out. And why I say that is, here's the evidence. So this is a study that was done for the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau by the Consumer Census Tract. This is a look at auto loan delinquencies that are 60 days late, past due. So when you look at this, in the first 2 years after purchase, that all loans originated in 2021 and 2022, are starting to show higher delinquency rates relative to loans originated in previous years. So 2017 is green, 18 is orange, 19 is blue, 2020 is brown, purple. My kids would call it fuchsia with 2021. Gray is 2022, right?
Yep.
To give everyone a track. And the bottom here is ranked by quarter: quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, and so on. So they took a look at comparable loans. They said auto loans that originated in 2021 have a delinquency rate of 0.67% in the sixth quarter after origination, which is right here, right? Look at that jump compared to previous years on loan originations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the sixth quarter.
Yep.
That's 13% higher than the delinquency rate of auto loans that were originated in 2018. Let's time out for a second. Do you think that caught their attention, the CFPB?
I think so.
It
I
certainly
can
did.
understand why.
Right. Now, this is all credit scores and all profiles in this study. They and I had the graph, but I decided not to put it up so we can just talk to it. The trend is even more pronounced for consumers with subprime and deep subprime credit scores. So in 2022, the auto loans for consumers with those with deep subprime scores were 2.4% delinquent 2 quarters after origination, not 6 quarters later. 2 quarters after origination, they were 2.4% delinquent, which is a 33% increase.
Yikes.
Right? I mean, just when you think about that, it's stunning when you realize what that increase is. Sorry, my mouse got stuck there for a second. So,
well, okay. So there is some sort of obviously problem making payments on time.
right.
Now, one of the things that, some of these lenders may have done is they held off on showing delinquencies of these car payments when COVID hit. And
Great.
I don't remember the exact
We're going to
term.
talk about that. You are
Okay.
right on the money. And that's something that I don't think we as an industry thought well and thought through it. Maybe the government did when they put this plan in place, and the bank certainly took advantage of it. And I've got the detail here to share it. So whenever the combination of prices are high, now that we have interest rates rising, we've got to be able to see how we can make cars affordable. And that means we have to stretch the term or do leases, right? So to accommodate price increases, this is again by Experian, by Q2. They said by the end of the Q2, 28% increase. 28% of all loans were between 73 and 84 months. Now, if you think about that for a second, a 3-year-old vehicle with good miles being financed for 72 more months is now 10 years old by the time it's paid for. Now, Becky and your audience that knows, people don't keep their cars that long. They're trading in right about 42 payments, right?
42 months it used to be was the average trade-in. I don't know what it is now, but is it 48 months? I don't know, but it was 42 months.
It's going to have to be. It will have to be because most of these people in the last 3 years, they overpaid for all their inventory.
Yep.
So they're upside down right now. They can't even consider trying to swap out and get into a new vehicle. That's a whole nother subject that we have to dive into.
Yeah.
So now that we understand that, okay, rates are going up, we've got the already extended terms out the wazoo at 28%. We got high DTI, high PTI. What does it do? What does that mean for the subprime side of the space? And this is where the opportunity comes in, right, for us. So the last, since 2020, 2021, the subprime market, I'm gonna classify near prime, subprime, and deep subprime. Just call it subprime, all 3 categories.
Okay.
We finished with the lowest subprime penetration for the year that we've had since going back to 2004, which you see right here. 2004, this is by Wall Street, New York Fed, 15.3% at 2021. Yeah. We finished 2020 at a little bit under 16%. 2 years in a row, lowest subprime penetration. And we're on that same trend right now to be right about 15.5% for this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
that makes sense.
Right. So here's the key, though. Not only did the lenders approve fewer subprime consumers, The three government programs, the mortgage forbearance, the rent forbearance, the auto loan forbearance, credit card forbearance, and student loan forbearance. I'm sorry, I should say five. Those five programs, anybody who was entered into those programs when they became available, regardless, and this is the key, regardless of your credit score, your delinquency ratio, getting ready to get a foreclosure or getting ready to have your car picked up and repoed, you entered into this program, they took a broom and a dustpan, wiped your credit card, your credit score clean. Everything went fresh. You started all over again. You had a clean slate. So now those subprime consumers were migrating up to near prime. Near prime consumers were migrated up to prime quality credit. And even some prime consumers who took advantage of some of these programs migrated up to super prime. So the lenders, and this is where I don't know if the industry as a whole recognizes this. Lenders were making loans against credit using, because they use Beacon Score and credit reports, right? They were making those loans against those. And Becky, they had no idea if the customer they're doing business with really is a prime customer or a super prime or a near prime. They had no idea. Here's what I do know. That in 2019, 10% of student loans were delinquent 90 days or greater. 2021, right now, 2022, right now, zero delinquency rate. How's that possible? Are we saying that the American population had a stunning turnaround on paying their credit on time and being responsible with their debt, that their student loans have 0% delinquencies right now? No, it's because they're still in a student loan forbearance program, which ends this year. So here's what I'm calling this. There's a tremendous risk on the automotive lending side on the portfolios, because the lenders do not know the quality of the portfolio performance of the consumer that they lended the money to, the asset that they let borrow. They have no idea because they were not told. It was against the law to be able to tell another lender, hey, I wouldn't do that deal. That person was going into repo before we did business, before they signed up for my program. So that's really not equitable. And we had those consumers who are coming in mass, buying these loans, wanting to buy the cars. Think about the consumer behavior. If all of a sudden I can buy a car that I should not be buying, I'm going to go buy it. A lot of people did that. They did the exact same thing pre-2008 crash, making 50 grand a year, buying a $500,000 home. They should have never been in that home to begin with. Make sense?
Here we go again. Here, are we going again to the 2008 financial crisis? How do you see this playing out? Sooner or later, I had a great featured guest speaker, Rusty West, who was talking through some of the data as well. And the lenders are going to get, so he thinks, or shares, are going to get hit by billions of dollars in potential repos.
I agree. And here's what you can put a pin in this. It's fact. We put $33 billion of loans on the books between first and second quarter of 2022. Our total loan outstanding for the automotive industry is just under $1.5 trillion outstanding. Now, put that in perspective, Becky. The crash of 2008 was right at $1 trillion for the mortgage industry.
Wow.
All right. So we're over that on the mortgage industry now, and we have $1.5 trillion in outstanding debt. And here's the other kicker. We've got over $1 trillion in credit card debt. So we've got three major financial institutions that are all at risk right now, based on these numbers of what kind of quality credit consumer do we have in there. So I promised you that, I know it's going to sound a little depressing. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the opportunity for 2023 and 2024, the 7 recession-proof strategies that I believe we need to talk about. So for 2.5 years, I've been describing the need for dealers to buy what I call unicorns. They are older vehicles with either average miles or less than average miles in excellent condition. And you can still sell for a very, very good price. The magic price point was still $15,000 or less. Well, you can't do that on 0 to 3-year-old vehicles today. They're almost impossible to get, and I'll show you why.
Yeah.
Right. The 4 to 6-year-old vehicles are still a little bit pricey, even if they got over average miles. So you have to look at the 2011 through 2017 model year vehicles. And this is a study that was put out again by Experian, supports what I've been saying for almost 2 years, a little more than 2 years, that the best deal to buy a vehicle is sitting in consumer's driveway. So out of 285, 89 million vehicles on the road, 35% of them are in that, what they call the sweet spot. That's our new bread and butter car, that 2011 through 2017. Here's the kicker. They're not being serviced by franchise dealers, right?
Wow.
So strategy number one, partner with a phenomenal service marketing company. Buy the registration data specifically for 2011 through 2017 consumers and target those customers with one offer: free safety inspection. I don't mean free just by free, saying, if that's all they get, that's all they get. But guess what happens? Here's what it's going to cost you to keep the car safe. Oh, by the way, once you do that, you might want to consider doing this additional work that's going to cost you. And here's where creative opportunities come in. If the consumer can't afford to pay for the service bill, I have partners, Black Book partners, who do service finance. And just about everybody can get approved for up to $5,000 to either use to pay for the service, or, and I love this part, let me trade you out of that older vehicle and use your new pre-approved $5,000 towards the purchase of another car. So now I'm going to take your trade-in and the $5,000 you got to help you buy a like new used car, or even a new car. You figure 3 out of 10 people take that opportunity. That's worth that's worth all the money. Here's what I know: dealers will drop thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to bring in a circus, to drive in 10,000 customers in a weekend and be happy they sold 100 units.
Yeah, they blow it out. They try to.
Right. Spend that kind of money, bring 10,000 new customers, 2011, 2017 through your service department. What will that do to your bottom line? Now, I'm not done. Number 2, when your customer is there, you're also delivering a service lane appraisal, check writing offer. Whether they do business with you or not, you might be able to buy some of those unicorns that are sitting in people's driveways, and they don't even know what that car's worth. They haven't even thought about it. It's their third car, right? And if you buy that car, number 3, you get reconditioning revenue. There's great opportunities if you partner with the right reconditioning companies to help minimize your overall expense and improve your turn time to retail ready, so you can maximize your profit. Number 4, you get the service revenue out of it. Number 5, you get the refinance opportunity. I've been talking about this for a while, and I'd love to hear you talk about your refi and helping dealers get into the middle of that refi opportunity, because a dealer can do so much to help their consumers that are in their market to refinance their vehicles, instead of letting them go to the credit union or to the bank and then put themselves at risk with the chargebacks that they could be suffering, much less not to see that customer again 3 years later. We've got to start thinking in terms of servicing our community, not just one time, but we want to help that customer be able to be a 4, 5, 6, 7 time vehicle consumer. And the last thing I would like to talk about is how this reaching out, doing the olive branch of love to our communities. As a dealer, you could say, listen, we know that people are struggling. Times are tough. We'd like to help you. We don't, confidential, give us a call. We'll schedule an appointment. We can do a check writing offer right away. We have refinancing opportunities right away. If you want to keep your vehicle, we can help you fix the vehicle. Reaching out and then touching your community can do a lot for our dealers in 2023 and in 2024 to reduce the risk that's at play here. Now, here's the reason why they need to do it. I'm not suggesting that they might want to do it. They absolutely need to do it. This is all new vehicle sales back to 2005. You see right here?
Yep.
Right? We peaked over here in 2015, 16, 17, 18, just under 18 million. That red box defines that, right? Now, here's the challenge. Our 0 to 3-year-old opportunity is 2022, 2021, and 2020. And look at how low the volume of those sales were. So already, we do not have enough running supply of 0 to 3-year-old vehicles that can come back to the market to sustain all automotive dealers. Now, there will be some dealers who will be much better at targeting those cars and getting those people in and winning that business, they'll win their bigger share of their pie because they've been doing it for a while. So what is it? So now I got to go back. All right. So what about 2019, 18, 17? You could see we pretty good population here. But what have we been chasing after for the last 3 years? We've exhausted the 0 to 3 year old. That's why the lanes are not doing so well, because just about everything running through the lanes are higher mileage, every edgier and sketchier units. Today, we just released our auction activity, 55% sell-through rate. I had a dealer call me today. I said, dude, I mean, everything running through the lanes is trash. Everything. Not even interested in buying what's there. And that doesn't mean that the good stuff that is still going, if they are going through, and remember, the pricing is still high. Dealers are not bidding that much. Now, to win good business, you go from 2011 through 2017, look at that population. 35% is right in there. Dealers need to create We Buy Cars portals and a We Buy Cars center and train every single person from top to bottom, front to back in their organization to be able to go out, appraise vehicles, and make check writing offers. That is the only way they're going to be able to thrive, because we already know the manufacturers are not going to be able to produce enough new vehicles. We already know that. That's coming. We already know.
Well, you and I had a conversation today too about these new vehicle sales, and I got to tell you, well, I'm just saying, new vehicles are hitting the lots, and some of these dealers are selling them at invoice now.
Right. Well, I know Chrysler, I've been told that the Stellantis has to, and several people have told me it's because those vehicles are so heavily decontented that they need the discounts to be able to move them. I haven't heard much about other brands really heavily discounting their vehicles yet, but they will. They will. And we're not seeing the factory supporting those sales with any interest.
Well, here's the thing: you want to take them off the idea, and I'm not here to, hit on, a dealer one way or the other. I'm just talking the truth. The reality of it is that, okay, I'll go ahead, give up the profit on the front end. Well, they always have, and we'll make it on the back end. But okay, so all right, so now the interest rates are going up, and so the customer obviously is going to have to make, if they're going to buy the vehicle, they're likely going to pay more or have a higher payment.
Right.
And
that's right. And here's the challenge. We'll go back to the CPP. They actually have a regulation. It's a rule that they don't want dealers. The price listed cannot be different if a customer pays cash. It's got to be. So if you're netting out a vehicle by throwing in all the cash incentives you think a customer might qualify for, but if the cash customer comes in and they don't qualify for all those incentives, you can't change the price.
Wow.
Not based on the regs that we just read that are coming out, right? So that's why we said we got to really pay attention to that stuff.
Well, I know several dealers, lots of dealers. I mean, which surprised me as well. For, I don't know, last couple of years anyway, they offer the finance. If you finance with the dealership, we'll discount the vehicle by $1,000. Now, if you don't finance with us, then you're not going to get the discount of $1,000. And from what I understand of the proposed regulation, that's going to be a no-no. Dealers are not going to be able to offset the cost or offset the profit based off of this $1,000 discount.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty intriguing. A couple things I want to say. Don Brady, welcome. Glad you're on. He's saying hello. Your buddy Don's on. Good to see you, Don. Stephen Apicella. Okay. So he's always good for his comments. Our great industry won't earn the reoccurring customer by waiting for their service moments. It's too late. Customers have already defected by then.
Yep.
Modern retail is should be one continuous dealer customer ownership experience before, during, and after the sale. I'm telling you, I can start saying this stuff like I own it. No vacancies in your dealership experience, YDE, if you deserve anything more than the one-time transaction.
Right.
And he's so right on that.
He's 100% right. 100% right. And every successful dealer that I know of today is doing something just like that. That want the SPOC. I don't mean live long and prosper SPOC. I mean single point of contact abbreviation. For you had mentioned it earlier. One salesperson or one person flows through the entire process from beginning to end, whether it's online or on the lot or even off the lot. They do it all.
Well, here's the thing with that. I also had a poll on that. It's going to probably be ending soon, along with this poll as far as affordability crisis. But how do dealers see this single point sales approach? Is it happening, right? And I was surprised about the percentage of there's more probably support for that single sales approach than I would have ever guessed.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not room for that. I agree that there is. Highline, is quite obviously a good reason to have that type of process. It's little to no friction in buying that car to finalize that transaction with that sales associate. But let's not kid ourselves. It is a tremendous amount of training, the
Yes,
right person in the right seat.
it
And
is.
it's not a plug and play. It just isn't. And dealers, if in fact they're going to embrace that idea, there's a lot to consider. Do you remember back in the day when dealers were considering one pricing? Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that?
I do. Hmm.
And you had some dealers going, "Oh, I'm going to go one price and I'm just going to go all in. That's what we're going to all do." Until you realize what it takes to actually get there. It's a
Yeah.
whole completely different beast. And it takes so much to really embrace that concept. And hell, I know Penske tried it and they just weren't successful. And you're either going all in, you go all in, or you don't do it. It is what it is. It's
You're
not, you're
100%
going to
right,
put your
Becky.
toe in the water, kind of try to figure it out. It's the same thing here with that
Yep.
single sales approach. I worked with dealers, a Toyota dealer 10, 15 years ago, and trained their team, his
Mhm.
sales staff, on finalizing the transaction with the menu presentation. He wanted to do it. He was very successful in doing it because he made up his mind that's what he wanted to do, but he
Mhm.
also made sure he had the right training,
Right.
the right expectations. So I do like the idea behind it, but it's not for everyone. That's for darn sure.
Well, to your point, it is absolutely it does require a culture change. It does require every person stepping up as a part of the program, especially parts and service and recon. All has to be included. I opened up the first Adam store in the country. Ran it for nearly 7.5 years before I was recruited to go work for CarMax.
Oh, go figure. I didn't know that. See, we have
Yeah, and then
something in common.
ran CarMax locations, worked in CarMax locations for 5 years. It's a complete culture change. We all read those articles that people talk about. Oh, we've got to get to great customer experience, right? We've got to amp up our customer experience. Well, I'm scratching my head like, okay, I'm waiting for someone to say what needs to happen to deliver that legendary customer experience, because no one said it yet. And I've been saying it here recently by reposting a few of those articles and saying, you're missing the point, people. You cannot deliver that kind of legendary customer experience with your same culture. You got to change it. You have
Well,
to
let's
have,
talk a little bit about that too,
yeah,
if you don't mind me.
no, no, mhm,
Okay. So, other conversations that I've had today about how customers have been treated
right.
over the past 2 years. Last year,
Hmm.
buying a car, you're paying $5,000 over sticker.
Hmm.
Like it or not, that's what we do. That's how it's done. See you later.
Right.
Same thing for customers who might have some slow pay history. I don't have to tolerate that. I don't have to buy down or pay for a lender fee. Have a nice day. Down the street you go, Jack. In fact, I wrote an article about that brooming brooming subprime customers, that salespeople are doing it. And the
That's right.
reason why is because they don't want to deal with a desk manager. They don't want to deal with that F&I manager. Can't you get yourself a real customer? No, we're not discounting anybody for anything for any reason at all.
Right.
And so they're like, okay, the very minute they hear, oh, you've got some slow pay history, down the road you go, I'm getting myself a real customer.
That's right.
And so we have a comment here from David. He says, culture starts at the top. Amen. Amen. It
Yeah.
sure does.
Well, David, my father in the car business always taught me. He said the fish stinks from the head down.
Fish stinks with the head down. Yeah, my dad used to tell me the same thing. Now, I actually, it's funny, you get to know people in the industry. And I grew up in the industry. My father had a dealership, so I have a PhD myself too. So there you go. And
Right.
but my dad unfortunately passed away earlier on from he had lung cancer. And so I went on to sell cars, and later I got promoted into F&I, and I'm like, oh man, I died, went to heaven. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I loved it. I'm doing this deal. And then later became a director of finance. And then when you know it, I ran a Saturn dealership, and everybody and their mother goes, why in the world, Becky, would you do that to your career? Why
Right.
would you even think to do it? But you know what? I learned so much from that
Right.
experience. It was like one of the best things that ever happened to me in my career. And we actually made a lot of money and had a lot of fun.
Oh, I got picked on a lot by my GM buddies all up and down Dealer Row. Meeting them up at late in the evenings. I was like, hey, I got a sticker too, and I have an addendum. I just don't negotiate. I don't discount. I sell up.
We sell up, and we trained, the idea behind it was all value selling, and
That's right.
how important, people, if you sell the value, they'll buy. You don't have to go ahead and discount,
Mhm.
and the whole idea was, they were like, why in the world would people go ahead and pay full retail if they can go down the street and negotiate for a Honda down the street? These
Mhm.
stores are going to shut down in a year, and that just
Mm.
didn't happen.
No.
Now, it shut down for other reasons later on, many years later. But in the very beginning of time, I mean, it was the concept, it was the culture, it was the fun,
Right.
everybody really getting into it, and
Became a
we
verb. The actual name, it became a verb. I want to Saturnize my business.
I want to Saturnize my business. And so, yes. And so then these dealers decided, I want to do this one pricing. It sounds like so much fun. It's great. And I'm like, you don't understand. There's a lot. It looks a lot easier than what it is. It's like that person who wants to get that promotion into F&I and just don't realize there's a lot of work that it goes into becoming a good F&I person. There's a lot.
Right. So a buddy of mine, Mike Anderson, he owns a
Yeah.
company called Reich's Consulting. I think you know him.
Mhm.
That's his area of expertise. He teaches dealers from the ground up, top down, bottom up, front to back, how to do and become a one price single point of contact. It's not just sales, right? It's every aspect of the experience for the consumer, but it starts with the salespeople. It starts with your service people, starts with your parts. You get those people fired up about working for you, and they love working for you. They'll deliver that kind of experience that's legendary, that everybody's chasing today. It's not just, you don't buy expensive technology and good people and expect it to work without holding accountability for the process.
So speaking of which, there has been a lot of conversation on the digital retailing, and I talk about it all the time, engaging customers earlier on in the process online, because I do understand the benefit behind that. That was part of my teaching, what I learned from even the Saturn days, and then later on when I had the good fortune of working in the AutoNation stores with JM&A, when I was recruited
Right.
by JM&A and later promoted after a while being on the road. And that was
That's a
tricky
lot of
because
road time.
that road time was, you learn a lot though. You learn what's going on in those dealerships, and here's what you do find out: a dealer with a process will always fare better than a dealer that doesn't have a process, right?
Right.
I mean,
Mhm.
you always find that out. But when we went into those AutoNation stores, we were, implementing menu selling for the first time. We were meeting customers at a kiosk in the middle of the showroom. It was like,
Mhm.
"Are you? Well, where's the F&I department? Well, it's back there. It's an admin office. You're going to print those docs, but customers are going to stay at the kiosk in the middle of the
Mhm.
showroom. And everybody's thinking, well, how's that going to work? That ball and chain mentality no longer. And the marathon F&I deliveries, that's not going to happen anymore. And
Right.
how does that all happen? So here we are 25 years later. And now we're going to the digital retailing aspect, engage customers online, and then from there to be able to continue that online experience to an in dealership experience, to completely digitalizing the entire workflow from online to finalizing this transaction in the F&I office.
Right.
And now we have dealers, we have managers freaking out. They're like, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, it needs to happen, because the more efficient we all are, the more profitable we'll be.
And I think the pandemic has altered a lot of people's minds about that. Working with DealerTrack since 2005, all
Yep.
the way up through 2015, and that was a big driver for us, right? I felt like we were dragging the auto industry and dealers into the 21st century with digital retailing. Now, we did not have a complete digital retailing solution then. We had pieces of it. And so we figured out ways to try to piecemeal it together. And there was some acceptance to it. I know that I've had some dealers that figured out the piecemeal project and were very, very successful with it. And what I recognize today, looking back at that, Becky, I think there's a disconnect. And it happens with a lot of technology. Technology comes out and it's ready to go, but the population at large is not ready to use it. They're not ready to accept it. What the pandemic did, it took what I feel like almost 20 years worth of pushing and shoving and trying to convince and talking to dealers to do this. It took 20 years into 10 months, and it's now an easier conversation. It's readily acceptable. I have dealers now saying, how can I do more of digital retailing myself? I want to figure out how to create my proprietary solution, so I don't rely on a cookie cutter approach. I have more flexibility to design what fits my brand, including my name as my brand, and the way I want to run and do my business. Now, there are some restrictions on that. When they do that, you still got to deal with the OEM, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for most franchise dealers having to worry about that, because they're not going to have enough new car inventory to have to deal with that in the first place.
Yeah, well, David said it happened overnight. I remember phone calls. Yeah, they were like, I don't know, Becky. I think we have something somewhere.
Right?
Well, fine. We've got something that we paid for. We haven't quite used it yet, but we'll figure it out. And you're right. So it certainly led the way that, hey, we've got to do something with this. We've got to be able to figure out how in the world we can engage with that customer, even having to deliver that vehicle if we have to completely online. So that certainly opened up the gateway for that. So here's the other thing.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So, all right. So based off of what I'm reading, and more consumers really are the ones that are doing business in the traditional sense. They're the ones that aren't really forcing the process when it comes to completely that digital experience online.
Correct. That's right.
Can you
They are.
talk about that and what you know?
Well, the consumers are the first drivers of, they tend to wag, they're the tail wagging the dog for the dealer. And it's until enough consumers en masse start demanding it, then as a population, the dealer community starts to adapt. And albeit slow, but they do start to adapt. But it's more driven by how consumers live every day. If you think about when's the last time have you taken an Uber or a Lyft or ordered groceries from your phone and had it delivered? Dinners having delivered to your house, using Amazon. The way we live and operate every day is the reason why we want a digital retail service experience, buying and selling a car, right? I bought a house recently. I did 99% of everything online. I spent 20 minutes at the lawyer's office because you still have to go through and sign all the legal documentation, and they got to see you.
Yeah, I
Right?
think we could. I would think that I would like to see customers go through some of the digital journey earlier on, um, and get as much into the transaction to shorten the time it takes to buy a car. I don't, and again, it could be twofold. It could be them really going through that, um, or the dealer allowing them to go completely through that process, right? Until
Right.
they get into the dealership. And I think what the holdup is too is that we have those tools, but yet when the customer comes into the dealership, all bets are off. Okay, we're starting all over again.
Right.
It's like, well, forget what you were talking about, what you were doing online. It doesn't matter. Fill out this
Yeah,
gridded
start all over.
application.
Right. Right. And I've seen that happen, and you could just see the expression on the customer's face, like, oh, I can tell you right now, if that was me, I'd walk out. I wouldn't do it. I don't. If I do anything remotely and I have to go pick it up, if it's not ready, I cancel my order and I leave, because that's not what I paid for. I paid for ease, convenience, and to get it up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do see, I think, it will be compelled if in fact dealers would push more for it if they saw the push coming from the customer.
And I think I'm hearing a lot of requests for change. I'm actually hearing a groundswell for a proprietary technology, meaning the dealer is looking to hire their own development team so they can design and develop a proprietary tool so that they can make it fit the way they want it to fit. A couple months ago, Brian Kramer and I were in a
Oh
deep
yeah.
discussion, and we were talking about analytics and statistics and A/B testing and stuff. And he mentioned something. One of the things that he did that really shocked him was test drives. And I was like, "Well, tell me what did you find?" He goes, I was raised. Everyone's got to test drive a car. You do not let a customer try to buy a vehicle without a test drive. You need that experience, right? And to the point that, I mean, I know I've let some people go who didn't want to do test drives when I had my dealerships, and he's like, "Yeah, I did too." I've had to let people go who would not let test drive a car with a customer, but they did A/B testing, and they had the data and the metrics to follow, so they can match. Okay, test drive to a real delivery, to a delivery versus, and this is the metric. So pre-selecting the right vehicle that actually fit the consumer's budget.
Amen.
Right? When they did that A/B testing, the pre-selecting the right vehicle that really fit that consumer's budget had a higher closing rate than actually taking the test drive. It got to the point, he's like, you know what? Test drive needs to be secondary. Unless the customer's asking, I want to drive it, we're not really pushing that now. Or it wasn't when he was running his stores. It's still a critical piece, but it's at the customer's request. So with data, and this is what I love about data, if you watch the data and you're measuring it and you do A/B testing, you can pivot quickly. You can make some changes within your organization that fits the process. And that's what I find very interesting, that brings to me some talents that I have. I can look at some data and say, okay, that data is driven by this process and this is how it should work. And we need more dealers to get to that point.
Amen. So I can tell you how many times when I'm in the store, I'll say, "Okay, guys, what's your average FICO score?"
Yeah.
And they all tell me. What do you think they all tell me?
They probably
720,
I
730,
say prime.
750. We don't get many, customers who have slow pay or subprime customers, Becky. I'm like, okay, when's the last time you checked? Well, what do you mean? How do you know that number's valid? Where do you get that information from? So what we did was we pulled up, from Route 1, also from DealerTrack, you're able to determine your average FICO score submitted and approved.
Right.
Every time, what do I find out? It's not
Credit score
7,
lower.
try 640.
Mm-hmm.
Try 640, try 650. It's nothing where they thought it was going to be. And it is so important to drill down into finding out What's your customer base? What's happening with that? And perhaps maybe we're not delivering that 640 is because you dissed it wrong from the very beginning. And by the
Didn't select the right
time,
car.
what?
Didn't select the right car.
You didn't.
Right.
No, you can't, right? So, as they say, you can't squeeze water out of a what? Turnip? I don't know. But or as a stone, I don't know. But these pipe dreams, I mean, and you know what? I'm seeing that happening again. It's happening. And because they're taking short steps. They're not used to, determining or having to worry about determining if the customer can actually qualify for this vehicle earlier on or not. And how
Right.
important is that? But one thing, real quick, I want to share with you and some of the viewers about this test drive. Now, you're talking to someone who grew up in the car business that's also sold cars before I got promoted into F&I. So I will tell you, I made a horrific mistake, horrific, and it paid with this for like a long time in my career. And my old boss, Jay Weddick, to this day trains. Well, maybe not anymore. Maybe the story's gone. Maybe the slate is
Mhm.
clean now. But I will tell you, Paul. I did not test drive this customer. And I said, if I could get these payments to work out, would you buy the car from me? She goes, honey, I love you. Yeah, I'll do it. Well, it took us 3 days to get her approved. I
Mm.
DX the car in. You know what that is, right? You
Right.
DX the
Dealer
car,
trade.
dealer trade that car in. That's right. And, finance manager Kathy's walking the customer